What's good, Outrage crew? All right. Let's get this live feed out on the Facebook real quick, Hal. Happy Saturday to you. Lots of crazy shit going on. We're going to get into all of it and more, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Share it out. Share it out on the Facebook. Share it out. All right. What's good, baby? How you feeling, Archer? Glad to have you on board the battleship here. Oh, yeah, man. We're gonna get into the March for Life. There, it's all over the all over social media. People screeching racism, because those evil white people in MAGA hats had, the audacity to stand and look condescendingly at a Native American man, and it's textbook genocide, okay? And all the people, all the blue check marks on Twitter, they understand this, okay? You can't stare at a man in a Native American headdress because you're genocider. All right. Never mind that 90% of the Native Americans died from communicable smallpox disease. No, there's a March for Life going on with a bunch of pro-life people. Went out on the street and protested and are marching for some goddamn reason, and it's there's this video that's being passed around all over Twitter of a bunch of these white kids in MAGA hats standing around and looking at this Native American dude who apparently there was simultaneously a Native Pride march or some weird thing. And, the white kids are looking condescendingly at the Native American man, which implies genocide, and implication is more than enough. All right. Guantanamo Bay for these young men, wearing MAGA caps in public and looking condescendingly at a noble savage there. It's truly hateful and indicative of the fucking straight white male problem. All right, that we need a final solution to. All right. Just marching and protesting is so goddamn gay. It's so gay, dude. Do you not have a job? Do you not have anything else you can do other than stand on the street and complain about shit? I mean, real motherfuckers go on live streams and complain about shit. All right? That's how you get the change into society. No, but it's like, if you're not really changing anybody's mind, going out and chanting slogans and having signs, and it's just, you just kind of make yourself look like an idiot. And marching and protesting are for the leftists screeching, weirdos. For conservative people are supposed to have jobs and, supposed to be a little more well thought out than that. I mean, yeah, if you don't want taxpayer funded abortion, how about you organize a tax boycott? Something of that kind. Don't support it in any way. But this whole just going out in the street and screaming and thinking you're accomplishing something is just, that's what idiots on the left do. Yeah, too many movies and video games. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, you're not accomplishing anything. Like, I was driving around LA and it's like there was a teacher strike or something, and they were just standing on street corners with signs that nobody could read. They were too small to even see as you're driving by. And they're just standing out there screaming incomprehensible slogans. And it's like, nobody gives a fuck. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're outside with a sign screeching. All it does is, you end up getting caught on camera and, with these confrontations between groups, and people make all these assumptions about your ideas, and nobody has like a well thought out argument or a debate or that's what I'm trying to do with this live stream. Is I come on here and articulate my ideas in long form and make arguments for my positions. There's no time to make an argument when you're protesting. It's boiled down to some idiotic slogan that you chant over and over like a brain dead zombie, and you're just, and you're not changing anybody's mind. You just look like a lunatic that had nothing better to do that day than than to get a marker and draw up your stupid sign and go outside and waste your time and discredit your entire movement. Leave that to the retards there. If you don't like abortion, then you got to vote in people that are going to take out the taxpayer funded aspect of it, and then don't have people in your life that participate in the abortion system. It's ostracism and boycotting, and since we have this big squid armed tentacle government in everybody's lives, I guess you got to try to vote for the people that are going to not support taxpayer funded abortion. That's what you do. You don't go out on the street and act like a moron, and then these dudes in the MAGA hats are acting like jackasses, just standing there like willingly being filmed, not just looking at this Native American dude weird as he chants his song or whatever. And then the blue checkmark retards on Twitter just have a field day calling you racist genocide enthusiasts. Art says, much time as they spend marching, they could have a real job by now. If you don't like how shit has become a mayor. Yeah, or, make an actual argument. There's no arguments happening in protests. Debate somebody in public. That might change somebody's mind. Going out on the street and chanting slogans like a moron, you're not accomplishing anything. And so it's just pathetic. It's like, it's like we're trying to compete with the idiocy of the left. Like, we've got to go out and be counter protesters and march for what we believe in because we care too. And it's like, that's not how that's not how you make the case for your position. It's just, you're making yourself look like just as much of an idiot as the Women's March with their pussy hats. And it's like, your hat that is supposed to look like a pussy, not an argument. We want women's reproductive rights. Well, nobody's trying to take away women's reproductive rights. They just don't want taxpayer-funded abortion, who some people consider baby murder. They would appreciate not to have to fund what they consider baby murder through the force of the state. That's pretty much the only argument I see being made. No one's saying we need to outlaw abortion. Because in my view, there's always the extreme cases where like the parents are, irresponsible young kids and they accidentally get pregnant and they're in no position financially to support having a kid. I can see it in that situation. I can see it for rape victims. It's should absolutely be a last resort, and it should not be promoted and celebrated like the left does. But I don't think it should necessarily be outlawed because it is a muddied argument with whether the woman can decide whether or not she has the baby, or at what point does it become life, does it become murder, whatever. It's a muddied argument, but the main thing is you shouldn't force people to fund it through taxation. Can't argue with a toddler who thinks Santa is real. They just have to wait for them to grow up. Yeah. I mean, it really is a sign of the immaturity and the shallowness of the culture. It's all these different people going out and marching as if that accomplishes anything, dude. They're just trying to, get some likes on Twitter and, virtue signal to their social media friends. What's good, Dirt Wade? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just think there's a lot of the right doesn't do themselves any favors with a lot of the baggage they have surrounding their really good economic ideas. Like having a small government and having free market capitalism is why we enjoy the fruits of a modern technological society that we live in right now. Like we're still pretty much coasting off the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s when the government was its smallest and we unleashed capitalism, and there was all this radical technological innovation, and to a lesser extent in the 90s and early 2000s with the tech boom, similar, but those are the good ideas that right wingers have, but they get weighed down unnecessarily with the stupidity that's linked to what people consider right wing ideology, like being anti-drug. As people guzzle beer and drink coffee all day, they're supposedly anti-drug. I mean, Americans are on drugs all day, every day. And like, people are still maintaining this stance to be like against legalized marijuana, or the prohibition of any of these drugs. Like, if you just open the market up, number one, help the economy. Number two, it's shown that with I believe in what was the South American country where they did that? They legalized all the drugs and addiction went down, and because it's not taboo once it's legal, and so it just becomes about like what benefits does the drug get you. Like when you make certain drugs that are relatively harmless as long as you're an adult, like marijuana, when you make them illegal, then people smoke some weed and they're fine, and they're like, well, what else is the government lying to me about? I think I'm gonna try some meth and heroin. Why not? It might be just as good as weed. And what you do instead is you legalize it. There's no taboo allure to it. There's no like counterculture element to it that's cool and like and radical. And it's like all that stigma is gone from it, and then it's just the drug itself, and you make information widely available about what drugs do when you take them and what amount to take them in to not fucking accidentally kill yourself. Um, and so conservatives being anti-drug just makes them look kind of moronic. Like, you know, what was his name? The Keebler elf there that was the attorney general, Jeff Sessions. Just, you just given the left wing fodder for mockery. And like, you just coming off like such a, uh, just a backwoods idiot when you're like focusing on weed as this big problem. And meanwhile, you don't talk about, you know, being legitimately anti-war or getting reducing the size of government or anything traditionally conservative ideas of economically speaking would benefit from. No, it's like we need to crack down on these damn pot smokers. And it's like you just that's some of the baggage that's weighing down conservative ideology. Also, the neocons making excuses for all the military bases we have overseas and whatnot, and the military-industrial complex. And you know, we need to protect Israel and the Middle East and all of this world policing horseshit. I mean, and the left has kind of fallen into that too. The left used to actually be anti-war, but now it's like they pretty much just stand for we hate Trump and we hate white people. Um, that's the position of the left. They don't even talk about war anymore. They were like just focused on criticizing Trump when he pulled troops out of Syria. Um, you know, they suddenly became so what the fuck? We love war now that Trump is against it. You know. Oh, right on, Archer, making videos. Beautiful. Yeah, man. Fucking get out there. We need some rational people talking in the YouTube space there. So yeah, people that make excuses for war, that's other baggage that that gets put on conservative ideology. And it's all about, you know, this stereotype that you have to play into. It's either this one side or the other, this left versus right paradigm. And it's for some reason these sets of ideas get grouped together. And like, if you're a conservative, you need to be, you know, anti-weed, and you need to be, you know, you need to support the troops and whatever agenda they're carrying out, regardless of you know, the murderous monstrosity that it represents or anything like that. That's not important. You just to support the troops and close your eyes and just they're good, and plow straight ahead. And George Bush was a great man. Look past the smoldering pile of a million dead Iraqis. They don't look at that. Okay, there was weapons of mass destruction. We just never quite found them. Okay, but that doesn't mean that, you know, doesn't mean they never existed. And I think one of the biggest things is also is, you know, this. There's nothing wrong with having a personal religion. I think if you're having a personal religion, if you're a person of faith, quote unquote, Christianity is probably your best bet, because it you know, lends itself to individualism and being anti-big government. But I think to really, you know, legitimize the economic ideas we have and not have the baggage attached to right-wing ideology, we got to get rid of the metaphysical magic nonsense that like goes along with being a moral person. That's why people slip into nihilism and, you know, wishy-washy, meaningless Buddhism and all this just like murky spirituality horseshit. It's because Christians can't prove that there's a God. They can't prove that Jesus came back from the dead or walked on water and turned water into wine, or he was a magical wizard who became a zombie. They can't prove any of that, but they hold on to it like it's gospel. Like, pun intended. I guess it is gospel. But it discredits your perception of reality. So like, if you claim that's the truth and you don't have any proof for it, well then when you say it's true also that having a small government and having free market capitalism is how we get prosperity, people have an equal skepticism to that. And the problem is when you conflate the morality of Christianity with the magical metaphysics of it, then people just look at the bullshit logical inconsistencies in the metaphysics and they're like, you know what? Forget morality altogether. I'm just going to meditate, and everything is relative, and I'm going to sniff Sam Harris's balls and pretend like I know anything. Pretend like I know everything, and everything is all determined, so nothing really matters. And Archer says, we don't police the world, just we know if we pull out, there is vultures on the other side of the hill that once we leave, they come out of their hiding places and start killing people and take over. Let them do that. What effect does that have on America? I think it's other countries' responsibility to clean up their own governments, get their own shit together, and, reduce the size of their governments and learn from our example that having a small government and free market capitalism is how you bring yourself out of the shit. It's not a copyrighted format. You can't go into other people's countries and force them to be virtuous. You can't force people at the point of a gun to have good ideas. It's just, they have to learn by example. It's like when your girlfriend is getting too fat and then and then you go to her and be like, baby, you need to lose weight. I'm starting to not be attracted to you anymore. That's going to go horribly wrong. If you make this, what is it called? If you make this, if you make like a demand that they have to do this, what's the fucking phrase I'm looking for? I can't think of it right now, but if you go and try to force her to change, she's not going to change. But instead, if you start going to the gym and working out and eating healthy all the time and don't even say anything to her, and you're just like, this is what I'm doing now, she's going to automatically feel inadequate and wonder why you're doing all this. And then eventually she's going to come around and want to join you in doing it. So leading by example is the way you create change in the world. Not setting up a military base in somebody's country and, watching them with, through the scope of a gun. And ultimatum, that's the phrase I was looking for. Ultimatums aren't how you change people's mind. They just create resentment, and then you end up with hijacked planes flying into the Twin Towers. So it doesn't do you any good to try to implement change in other people's societies by force. Because anytime you try to do anything by force, you're usually going to achieve the direct opposite result you intended. Because that's just human nature. Nobody wants to be forced to do something they don't want to do. They have to make their own decision in their own head and come to the conclusion that that's what's best. And then maybe they'll change. Because people don't change their mind very easily. It's why you don't, if you're a parent, it's why you don't force your kids to do things. When they're young and before they can even speak, sometimes you got to force them to do things. They're walking out on the road, you force them back on the sidewalk, whatever. It's an extreme example. But Instead, you negotiate with your kid. Anything that can be negotiated, you negotiate with the kid, and then they learn how to negotiate. Versus if you just say, do this because I said so, and threaten them with punishment, then what happens is it builds up resentment, and they'll comply in the moment, but then as soon as you look away, they'll try to get away with something. And you'll have an explosion later when they hit puberty and they decide that they want some autonomy, and then they'll really start acting up and disobeying you. So it's about, leading by example and negotiating. And yeah, I think that's a much more effective way to do it. And we just secure our borders, defend our country, build ourselves up economically, be the shining city on the hill, and be the gold standard example for the rest of the world to emulate. Archer says they are protecting them and trying to help them build an army of their own. ISIS is a result of us pulling out before the Iraqi army was ready to fight them. I don't know. ISIS seems to be a result of Obama arming and funding the quote-unquote rebels to topple the regimes in Syria and Libya. If we weren't intervening in the Middle East to begin with, they wouldn't have had all the weapons and training that they ended up with that became ISIS. Remember Trump said Obama was the founder of ISIS. Dead on. They couldn't have done any of that shit without our weapons and our trucks and our equipment and our training. That's what created ISIS. Our presence over there to begin with. And the whole Osama bin Laden, Al Qaeda resentment against America started with us funding and training the Mujahideen to fight Russia, and we're just over there meddling geopolitically, and also the U.S. aligns themselves with Israel, and agrees to defend them militarily, which also pisses off the Arabs. And so I don't think you have to play this maniacal geopolitical chess game with military force. All you need to do is, if countries aren't behaving in the way that you see fit, then you don't trade with them economically. You ostracize them from trading with the global economic superpower that is America. And so then, if they want to clean up their act and benefit from trading with us, well, they can do that. That's an option. But it has to be a negotiation. You can't force them to do it, or else you're just building up resentment, and you're going to have people trying to connive and scheme behind your back. So it's a whole mess, but once we opened Pandora's box back in 2001, we have to finish it. That's not something you pull out of. I don't know, man. What are we accomplishing by continuing to be there? It's just trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars being poured into a black hole that never ends. It's like you're never gonna turn the Middle East into a democracy. Not gonna happen. You're never gonna force them to have traditional liberal ways of thinking, having a small government and having free markets and laissez-faire capitalism. They're just not on that path. And so military force is not going to accomplish anything. It's just a wolf's den over there. And guerrilla warfare, and they know the terrain and we don't, and it's like you're never going to force people to change. And to me, it's just a waste of money. The military force should be relegated to defending against an attack. Before 2001, there was no I mean, that was more of a retaliation for our constant meddling in the Middle East. And if we didn't do that in the first place and just secured our borders and defended our country, then we probably wouldn't have had the attack to begin with. So got to focus on self-defense and building up our own country economically. But we have these war hawk neocons in the military-industrial complex who have friends in the war machine who want to profit off of all of that activity overseas, and so they benefit from trying to go over and topple these regimes and rid the world of terrorism and bad people. There's always going to be bad people. I just see it as like you don't go out and why do you have a gun? You have a gun to protect yourself. You don't go out Charles Bronson style and start vigilante just blowing people's heads off who are no matter how evil they are in the streets. That would be a crazy thing to do. Instead, you live your own life, you lock your doors, and if somebody breaks in, well, you got the gun. And that's what America should do as a country. But we have all these military industrial complex interests that are part of the war machine that make all this money from bullet manufacture and all the military equipment and all the all the big oil companies that want to have that direct connection to those Middle Eastern oil reserves. And it's just a big nasty mess. Yeah, I'm sure they've figured out some of the terrain over there, but again, what are we gaining out of it? I don't see any upside because we're not going to get them. We're not going to get them to change, and especially we're not going to get them to change. Looking down the barrel of a gun at them. Be right back. I got to piss real quick, but I think that's a good analogy. If your girl needs to lose weight, don't be like, baby, you got to lose weight. That's not going to work. You got to, start going to the gym and then looking extra supreme, and she'll feel inadequate. That's what America should have did, was just built up our economy, became even richer, and made the Middle East jealous of our swag. But yeah, I do respect anybody that has the balls to go into military service and go into it for the right reasons, that they legitimately want to defend the country they love and put their own balls on the line. That's some of the most commendable shit of all time. Who I have a problem with are the people that are creating this interventionist foreign policy and commanding the troops to go over there and die for no reason. Think about all the people that have gone over to Iraq and Afghanistan and died for what? What have we accomplished over there? We've just spent trillions of dollars lost, probably, you know, I want to say hundreds of thousands of lives, maybe thousands of lives. We've lost lots of good men. To what end? What have we achieved? We're just kind of over there. you know, the Middle East is not changing. If they're going to change, they've got to get out of this habit of theocracy, and they need a separation of church and state. We haven't gotten nuked. I don't know. Does that? I mean, we have anti-missile defense systems here at home. I mean, we could probably just shoot it down if they tried some shit. And we can also spy on them via drones. We don't need boots on the ground to see if they're up to, shooting weapons at us. And what incentive would they have to nuke us if we weren't over there meddling in their country? If we were just minding our own business and our economy was thriving much better than it is now, we hadn't wasted all that money in the Middle East. I mean, what incentive would they have to nuke us? I mean, we are the biggest importer of their oil. Like, we make them fabulously wealthy. I mean, I think they would much rather have us buying their oil than have us wiped off the planet. Because America is the biggest cash cow the Middle East has in terms of exporting their oil. There's no benefit in wiping us off the planet with a nuke, I don't think. I see that we're infidel unbelievers. But also, we have bigger nukes than they do. Our nuclear button is bigger than theirs, as Donald Trump would say. And so, I just feel like the Saudi princes and the people that live in these opulent lifestyles would much rather live like that than risk mutually assured destruction by trying to wipe us off the planet. As much as they disagree with Christianity and want to spread Islam and have a caliphate, how committed are you really? Do you want to have your lavish Saudi palaces and concubines coming over and having fuck parties all day, or do you want to risk being wiped off the planet because you hate our freedom? I don't know. I mean, freedom and prosperity is so attractive. You can only convince so many people to want to destroy it. I mean, they kind of have to be provoked like a wasp nest to get fired up to do that kind of shit. So if there's no provocation and we're just over here kicking ass economically and, creating culture and art and going to space and they're not just going to try to wipe us off the planet. The Muslim strategy, even with that provocation, has instead been to try to infiltrate and work their way into government. Do it slowly through subversion and whatnot. It hasn't been direct military force because I don't think they want any part of a direct military confrontation with the United States. It's more sneakiness and subversion and trying to work their way into our culture. That seems to be their strategy. If Archer says, if Bin Laden was still alive and doing his shit, we would have been nuked by now. Yeah, I don't know. Did Bin Laden have nukes? Because that's the thing. We trained Bin Laden. We created Bin Laden. I mean, we armed, funded, and trained the Mujahideen. That was a CIA creation. That he's a product of the meddling of America's foreign policy. So what I'm saying is, if we wouldn't have done that to begin with and gone over there and tried to meddle in their affairs, there wouldn't have been all this anti-Western resentment. They would have resented us in general because Christians and Muslims are fundamentally opposed. But, you know, I don't think the resentment would have been stoked as much as it was. Archer says, yeah, and that's what they're doing. Any day now, we will have a vice president that wears a hijab. Yeah. Yeah. That's the big problem with Islam. I mean, let alone that they worship a prophet that is a pedophile, or was a pedophile and a warlord, and the whole, it's that considering anybody who doesn't believe in Islam to be an infidel, and spreading their religion by the sword and not the word, not the pen. Those are huge problems with Islam. But the main problem with Islam is that they don't have a separation of church and state. So it's like, it's this top-down authoritarian government religion. And so it's a totalitarian religion. And so, it's so funny to me when people try to equivocate Christianity and Islam. Like, you start criticizing Islam and people immediately jump to, well, the Bible's pretty fucked up too. And it's like, they're totally different because we have a separation of church and state. We're not, enforcing religious text through the gun of the state. We're not legislating religious morality. And so that if Islam wants to have a reformation, that's the only way they're going to be able to do it, is have a separation of church and state. It's not going to come through it's not going to come through Western intervention. It's just going to make them hate us even more, and try to destroy us even more. Because, like, Islam is like, having an asshole guy that lives down the street, and he's up to all this evil shit, and and the key to that is lock your doors and keep your guns. It's not go over and, like, with your gun to that guy's house and be like, hey man, I don't approve of this shit you're doing over here. We got to figure this out. And then, like, you're just creating unnecessary problems, and you're not solving anything. Yeah, we shouldn't pay taxes to churches. That's how you get the aristocracy. So yeah, I think of the right wing focused more on economics, and less on being anti-drug and pro-war and pro-Jesus. Nothing wrong with being pro-Christian morality, because Christian morality is the best form of morality, I think, as far as religions go, because it's not attached to a state ideology. It lends itself to individualism and small government, and so separate the morality from the metaphysics with Christianity, and end the foreign wars, defend our own borders, and build ourselves up economically at home, and that would be the intelligent right-wing agenda. But there's all this extra baggage that's attached to it that gives it this caricature image of the backwoods redneck Republican who just hates gay people and like uh, wants to control what you do with your dick and like wants to make sure you're not doing any drugs and but doesn't mind, you know, meaningless wars and but at the same time they're moralistic and believe in nonsense. Like that caricature does not do any favors to the economic ideas that are actually valid. That, you know, it discredits the economic ideas to some extent because people throw the baby out with the bathwater and they're like, oh, I'm not a right winger. Oh, I'm not this judgmental idiot that, you know, wants to control what you do with your dick and what drugs you do. Because that hypocritical caricature is, it poisons the well of the valid ideas on the right economically. So promoting Austrian economics is just needs to be the main imperative of people on the right if we want to, you know, focus on the shit that we can prove and that works and that opposes the main threat of the left right now, which is this democratic socialism that's just so enticing to a lot of these young idiots. Archer says there's like 300 million people in the Middle East, about the same population as the US. I think there's more than enough people that if they get a UN of their own, that if they can get a UN of their own, they would be okay. Like a unifying government of the Middle East? I don't know. There seems to be a lot of pretty hardcore disagreements between Sunnis and Shiites over there. I don't know if there's any kind of unification that could work. But yeah, my whole argument is let them figure it out. I mean, that is a mess. That is a wasp nest mess over there, and that's any intervention from Western countries is not going to help. Especially not going to help us. Well, I think what would really help the Middle East is less centralized control, not more. I mean, if you add a layer of bureaucracy over them, that it's trying to force them to do things. Because I don't want the United States to be a part of the, you know, the United Nations or, you know, the Trilateral Commission or any of these like added layers of bureaucracy where, you know, you just have these unelected people making decisions that you know that you have to abide by force. And I think, you know, to have progress, you got to decentralize the system, get it out of the hands of these people in power, and open up the market to capitalism and let people trade and let people do voluntary interactions and figure shit out for themselves. Because then people can organize however they like and associate with whoever they like and create their own little cultural enclaves and cooperate with each other that way. With their ideology, a UN would be ideal for us and won't work so well. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense because as long as they're going to continue with Islam and that way of thinking, it does kind of lend itself to centralized control because everything has to be top down enforced. But that's not going to work. That's communism, you know. It's never ultimately going to work, but you know. I think they have to decentralize to have any kind of real progress. That's why you didn't see, you know, the Industrial Revolution coming out of the Middle East. And the cousin fucking didn't help. Lowering the old average IQ there. Never good for innovation, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking your cousin, not the key to prosperity.
But you know, when you worship a prophet that married a girl when she was 6 years old and had sex with her when she was 9, pretty much anything's on the table after that. Um, you know, that's why it's hilarious when people try to equivocate Islam to Christianity. It's like, yeah, Jesus probably wasn't a magical zombie who walked on water. Um, but, you know, at least he wasn't fucking kids. That's, and if he was, at least they edited that out of the Bible. All right. I mean, they wrote that in the Islamic text. You know, they wrote that down and they didn't edit it out. Was good, Marcos. You know, the editors were like, no, we got to leave that in. He was getting that 9-year-old pussy. That's everybody's gonna be impressed. It's like I don't know if Jesus was fucking kids. I wasn't there, okay, but if he was, they at least left that out of the Bible. They were like, this whole turning the apple juice into wine kid party, should we leave that out of the Jesus story? And like, yeah, it's not a good look. Archer says, we know it's not going to work. That's why it's always defragmented. But if we, the U.S., were to steal the place and give one person power, then the Middle East would have a chance. Right now, they're stuck. I don't know. I feel like they present it. Whoever we put in power, there's going to be some kind of, you know, rebel uprising, and it's just going to be resentment. If we implant a leader that they don't decide for themselves, like, they're just going to hate that guy and try to kill him. And he's going to end up getting bayoneted up the asshole like Gaddafi. The old bayonet up the asshole. That's what you get for working with the Western infidels there. I don't know. If we disapprove of the behavior in their country, we should just ostracize them economically. And I think we're doing a decent job of trying to get off of the Middle Eastern oil train right now. As far as I know, we're becoming more and more energy self-sufficient through the fracking and stuff we've been doing. And that would be awesome if we could get off of the Middle Eastern oil and start producing our own energy and be totally self-sustaining. That would be huge, because then we wouldn't have to rely on them, and they would that would take away a lot of their economic leverage that they have with us right now, and we wouldn't have to comply with, you know, we wouldn't have to do any business with them, and you know, until they change their human rights stances and start cleaning up their fucking act with them economically and why under their own bullshit. I don't know about the whole Muhammad being a pedo thing. Back in the days, people didn't really think like we did. Well, I don't know. I don't know how you can think. I mean, if you're fucking a 9-year-old, I don't care like what ideology you put on it. You pedophile. um, yeah, I mean, cultural relativism only goes so far. I mean, 9-year-olds can't consent to fuck you, like, no matter what era you're living in history. My birthday is in September, Marcos. September 7th. I believe that makes me a Virgo. Whatever the fuck that means. How the moon and the tides affect my consciousness. Ooh. Bust out the tarot cards. I know y'all like to think that I'm rational and logical and whatnot, and that's why you listen, and that's good, but truthfully, I'm just a tarot card reader, and that's how I figure out all my opinions, and I'd like to read some fortunes now. Archer says, even in the U.S., people were getting married at 12 in the 19th century right here at home. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's pretty creepy. 9 is way different than 12 still. I'm just pointing out that, like, he's supposed to be the supreme example of what it is to emulate, and he's a prophet, and he's like supposed to be, you know, the perfect being to model your life after in Islam. Meanwhile, he's fucking 9-year-olds. You know, not the best example to to shoot for. Everybody see all the retards calling it on the news. I said on the Drudge Report, they said CNN and MSNBC says impeachment nearly 200 times in a montage. Oh, do we need evidence? No, we have the word impeachment, and we shall repeat it. Just like the protesters out there, just say your chant over and over. Don't need an argument. We have a chant. Don't need an argument. We have a chant. Can we get anything done? No, we can't. But we're out here and we have a chant. Archer says, all I'm saying is that it's the easy button to dismiss him, just like any other religion. We go after the easy targets. Yeah. And especially because they're so sensitive about Muhammad, it's like, you know, you hold him in such a high regard, but he was a warlord pedophile. And it's like, I think it's a worthwhile contradiction to point out. I mean, if Jesus was fucking 9-year-olds in the Bible, I mean, that would be a weak point of the ideology. You know, because the prophet is supposed to be the model of morality that you're promoting. And it just lends an example to, you know, the lack of ethics that's actually in the system. You know. Keep your 9-year-olds away from the Muslims. And it's funny, you know, the actual doctrine of Islam is so just stone cold evil. You know, I mean, kill gay people, kill atheists, kill anybody who's not Muslim, and that's all promoted right there in the text. Fuck 9-year-olds, just like Muhammad. Spread the ideology like the sword. And it's just, and people make this equivalency to Christianity. It's like, not quite. Yeah, Archer says I would be Buddhist if I was going to be anything. Yeah, Buddhism to me, it doesn't have a system of moral principles, really. It's kind of just like meditate to make your own subjective experience more pleasurable, and like it's about not having existing in the moment and not thinking about the past, really not really thinking about the future and being anxious about the future and just being in the moment. And it's like that that's cool, but it doesn't give you any moral principles to live by. Um, what was I going to say about Islam? Uh, okay, yeah. I was going to say this. With all of that shit I just listed off about Islam, it's it's uh, it's weird that people would say moderate Muslim. Um, because the ideology itself is so not moderate. Like it's like the more you deviate away from it, the better of a human being. So, like, to be a moderate Muslim, or like, I'm not blaming people that are Muslims. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are Muslims that don't do evil shit, but the ideology itself is just textbook evil on black and white. And so it's like, the less of a Muslim you are, the more virtuous you can possibly be. So I don't like distance yourself from all the actual ideas and the tenets of the religion. It's like, I don't know. It's fucking weird. Um, but as far as Buddhism, it doesn't really have any principles for how to act in the world. It's kind of like just take the middle way, and it's like taking the middle way between good and evil doesn't work out very well, because then you just don't have any mechanism for identifying evil in the world, and it's kind of just, well, evil's going to happen, and I'm just going to be here meditating. And evil because I'm not doing anything. I'm just meditating. And whereas if you have principles like the non-aggression principle, that can be logically, proven out, then you're able to identify the actual evil forces in society, the people who initiate force against others. That would be, primarily the biggest offender of it would be governments, initiating force on you and forcing you to pay taxes, and at the point of a gun, fund their system. And so, you just have the non-aggression principle, and that covers, murder, assault, rape, and theft. And then you're able to identify the evil actors in society that are preventing true progress toward a moral and prosperous society. You know what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? So, like, that's my rap on Buddhism. It's like, I don't know, it just doesn't come with any actionable principles to identify the evil actors in society. Oh, you on that meditate game before bed? You meditating while you jerking off? That's blasphemy to the Buddha, all right? Archer says, I was going to say the reason Joe Rogan stays so neutral is because he's not trying to push an idea. He wants to hear other people's ideas like a proper journalist, only he's not a journalist. Yeah, I can see that. He wants to, remain open-minded, but, I don't know. If you're holding back things that you think to be true, and you're not speaking from your heart and saying what you think to be true, I think you're doing a disservice to everybody, especially when you have a huge platform like that. You're just not being honest. If you're withholding what you really think is true, and you're like playing this fence sitting position where you're like constantly schizophrenically playing devil's advocate with everything you believe, it's like you're not contributing any value to people's lives, as far as determining what the truth is and what's false. I think there is a benefit in being, examining both sides to every argument and being able to argue both sides. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got to be honest about what you think is actually true. And he seems to think that universal basic income is somehow some kind of valid idea, and that it's not just another form of communistic theft purveyed upon the population, and incentive to not actually work hard or create anything in society, and to just lay on your nuts and take DMT and think that you've contributed anything, or that you've figured anything out. Yeah, I don't think he has a real mission. And that's fine. There's a place for that. I just don't respect it if you're holding back what you think is the truth, and you're not on a mission to find what the truth is and speak it honestly, and have principles that help you determine what that is. And that's actual critical thinking. Critical thinking isn't like being so relativistic and fragmented in your thinking that you can never say what you think is true. I think that is that's the opposite of thinking. That's like, you're just a vessel for moral relativism, because you end up equating all these different ideas and like they're equally valid, and like let's just talk back and forth endlessly about them, and you never come to any rational conclusions. And so, what benefit are you ultimately having? But there's a place for that. I think if he's holding back and not saying what he thinks is true, I think that's a form of deception and manipulation that's not that valuable. Portland Me Too March. Is there a waddling vagina march there? Do we really need to march to figure out that Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby are losers? Oh, Antifa versus Proud Boys. I gotta piss one more time. I'm pulling this up. You can listen to the audio here.
You deserve a sandwich for this stream. Top KK.
Thank you very much. I love you.
Yeah, loud. POIDM are coming for Antifa.
Yo, watch the Reddit post. Just go crazy today. Reddit's gonna go crazy like, dude, Manga was Wisconsin to Portland. Oh my God, we got the riot cops, dude. Oh shit, we got the riot cops out, boys. What the fuck? Hell yeah, we got the content coming in. Yo, there's literally fucking riot cops, dude. There's fucking riot cops. Yo, Chad, do me a favor. Can you guys go through the VOD and see if I got the clip of the... I don't... Let me know if you guys got the clip. Like, if there's a clip of Portland and you got him maced, or if it's on his street, his street, getting maced.
So I don't know what's going on with that audio there. They're fucking doing advertisements and shit. Yeah, it's just so gay going out in the street and marching and having these confrontations between groups. Like, there are no productive discussions happening as a result of this. It's just going to end up somebody's going to throw a punch or pepper spray somebody or hit somebody with a brick, and it's like, it's just going to be, the police are going to have to shut it down, and it just foments more and more argumentation and screaming and idiocy. I mean, this isn't rational discourse. It's not what we need. I mean, it's just people who don't know how to make arguments go out in the street and make stupid signs and have chants and get into fist fights on the street and think they're accomplishing anything. It's like, it's so dumb. And I would expect it from the leftist communist idiots, because they legitimately don't have any arguments. They just want power and control. And so I would expect it from those idiots. But then the Proud Boys are just making all conservatives look like retard, racist Nazis. Like, you're just giving the left more ammunition to criticize the right, and it's totally unnecessary. You're not winning anybody over by going out and fighting the Antifa. It's like you're just equivocating yourself with them by lowering yourself to that level. And, you know, even though you have legitimate arguments to debunk communism and socialism and big government, you don't. Never mind that. Let's go have a fist fight in the street about it. It's like, it's so, it's caveman dumb shit, you know? And it doesn't win anybody over to your side. Even if you go out there and, you know, wipe the street with the Antifa and you just kick all their asses, it's like, that makes our ideas look better. It's like, it's so dumb, dude. The better your arguments are, the dumber it is to go out on the street and chant them. Like, so I would just let the leftist communists go out in the street and make themselves look like idiots. I mean, what? Why would we even go and engage in that nonsense? Unless you're just trying to get views on YouTube or something for going out there and punching somebody in the face. It's like such a dumb way to try to get your ideas across. These Antifa weirdos, and they're all black. Aren't they so badass, ladies and gentlemen? The anti-fascists, you know, out there fighting our major fascism problem here in America. I've only met one white supremacist dude. And that was in Burbank, California, outside a Starbucks. He was sitting on the curb drinking a Mike's Hard Lemonade with a sunburnt bald head. And not a lot of power being harbored there in the old white supremacist community. They're kind of shocking. They're excommunicated. Nobody wants to associate with them. He's not in Trump's cabinet? Archer regrets voting in favor of gay marriage. Yeah, I don't know. Gay marriage is just weird. Like, being gay is supposed to be subversive and, you know, like you're not supposed to do it. Like, this putting these traditional institutions and getting married to your gay partner, I don't know. I think they should be able to do it if they want, but it's, you know, it's pretty gay, ironically, to be gay and to be married. It's gay not in the homosexual sense, it's just kind of lame. You know, because gay sex is supposed to be like exciting, like happening behind a dive bar and you know, by a dumpster. It's not supposed to be, you know, in your nice condo, in an air conditioned, clean environment. It's supposed to be subversive and sneaky. I don't know. Let them get married too. I mean, I don't know how I feel about marriage. I mean, I eventually want to have a family and have some kids, but marriage is just such a fucked up institution with the family courts. I don't know how that works with gay couples, but like, just the idea that the woman can decide at any time she's dissatisfied and take half of your money and take the kids away. It's like so just absurd to put yourself in that situation as a man. You're just tying the noose around your own neck and trusting that the woman won't drop the plank below you. Archer says, when Republicans back in 08 and 09 were warning people of the slippery slope, they were right. They called it. Today, in a world where people can lose their career over Twitter posts 4 words long for being wrong-think, it's like every move the left does today is the rebellion of a Christian nation. Yeah. You're talking about slippery slope with gay marriage. More male marriage, better chance for Dirt Wade to get a piece. Slippery slope. So like, you're saying legitimizing gay marriage led to like the whole gender identity thing and transgenderism and whatnot. The whole LGBTQ agenda. Yeah. Yeah, they do. It does seem like a never-ending troll provocation to like. It doesn't even seem like they're enjoying themselves, like, having this whole political agenda behind their sexual orientation. It's just kind of like, I think it is just trying to troll straight white people, and get them to react. It's like the illegal drug thing. It's like, you make drugs illegal, you make them more alluring and sexy. Dirt's burning dinner. That's hilarious. Yeah. I just think these things can't be taxpayer subsidized. They just got to let them fizzle out on their own, because those people aren't going to be fundamentally happy chopping their cocks off and getting gender reassignment surgery. I think it is a lot of it is just trolling right-wing Christians and trying to trigger them, and you just got to let people fall flat on their own faces and stop giving a fuck. And just mockery. That's what I've been doing on stage, mocking the Miss Transgender or transgender Miss Universe contestant. Like, that's toxic masculinity if I've ever seen it. Men can't even let women have beauty pageants anymore. Like, I'm chopping my cock off. I weren't winning this motherfucker, Yeah, make no mistake about it. Any moral the Christian church has, the leftists of today do the exact opposite of it. Yeah. Because they have no principles of their own. They have no mission of their own. It's just like pushing an agenda of subversion and debauchery. And it's like, it doesn't bother me to have your fun. Good luck with all of that. We'll see how it ends for you. acting like a rebellious 16-year-old who just found atheism and goes overboard on their parents and creates ways to offend them. Yeah, I used to be that kid. Became an atheist and then voted for Obama because I fell into that left-right paradigm of if I'm an atheist, then and religion is bullshit. Well, I can't be a right-winger then. And I didn't like George Bush, and I was anti-war, and so that I was like, okay, I must be a leftist, progressive liberal, and so I voted for Obama. And looking back on it, I almost don't even regret voting for Obama, because if McCain would have got in, I mean, who knows what would have. He was super anti-Russia, so who knows what like larger military conflicts we could have gotten involved with. And Obama was perfect for exposing how hypocritical the left is. Obama we couldn't have had Trump without Obama. So, I mean, if McCain would have got in there and made the right wing look even worse than George Bush did, we could have got Bernie Sanders instead of Trump, and then we could have been spiraling into a totalitarian communist regime instead of having Trump right now. So, Obama may have been necessary for us to pump the brakes on this big government, communistic world government plan. So, Archer says, as an atheist, I'm ashamed of my people. We should be better than this. We should hold ourselves to a higher standard if we are to proclaim to be superior in logic. Yeah, you can't replace God with the government. And that's what most atheists do. Most atheists are big government leftists who, they don't pray to God, so they worship the state instead. And that's the big deal. It's like atheists have to find a moral system that isn't attached to religious metaphysics. And you shouldn't have to believe in a magic zombie man who came down from the sky and walked on water and turned water into wine in order to be a moral, rational person. I mean, there's logical principles that can be applied to morality and have you function as a beneficial, good person in society that don't require you to believe in magical horseshit. And it's just too often that atheism devolves into moral relativism and nihilism and big government. And that I actually, that's one of my main problems with Joe Rogan is he's pretty much an atheist. He says he's agnostic because he's like, he just takes the position of I don't know and you don't either, which is not true. You can logically disprove the idea of a Christian God that is, or an Islamic God or anything that's outlined in the religious text, because there's a lot of inherent contradictions there, and there's the burden of proof is on the person claiming the existence of God because there's no evidence for it. So there's there's rock solid logical disproofs for a God, and at least in the traditional religious sense. But you see instead he makes these statements about, maybe we should just have universal basic income. And he supports the welfare state and the redistribution of wealth and all of this big government interventionist nonsense because he doesn't serve God, so he doesn't worship a God. He doesn't have any abstract moral principles. So it's just, what can we legislate through the government and force people to do at the point of a gun? And so if there's anything he could speak out against and be more honest about, which I don't even know if he understands these rational principles, which is the thing. Is he being dishonest or is he just ignorant? I think he honestly is more ignorant than dishonest. I think he honestly doesn't see the moral problems with enforcing these policies through a government and forced redistribution and the welfare state and whatnot. Because I think his family was on welfare as a kid, and so he makes these justifications in his head. And it's just it's immoral. It violates the non-aggression principle, and it's incredibly destructive to the economy. So get the fuck out of here with your universal basic income horse shit. It's Archer says, honestly can't say liberating gays for their rights was worth what it has now become. Equality of sexuality is not the wisest choice we've ever made. Because of what it became, how it's constantly in our face. Yeah, I mean, I think people should be able to freely associate sexually however they want. I just think we should probably just get the government out of relationships and not have the government be part of marriage. I mean, it should be just a union between a man and a woman, and there's no necessity for the government to step in and negotiate things on people's behalf. And yeah, the transgender kid thing is just horrific. Yeah, it's fucked up, dude. And yeah. As far as consenting adults, do whatever you want with your dick and pussy. Leave the damn children alone. I don't know if it's a necessary slippery slope that was going to always happen that way, or if the leftist identity politics just pushed it in that direction, or I don't know. But it is troubling. All right, ladies and gents, I'll probably wrap it up for today. We're going on 90 minutes. Has been fun. I probably got to get out there on the roads and make some damn change out here, delivering some packages, some goodies out here. Still got bills to pay, baby. But yeah, it was a fun hang today. Hope y'all having a good Saturday out there, enjoying yourselves. I just shared out another clip on the at Nick Jordan himself on Instagram, at Nick Jordan, or at I am Nick Jordan on Twitter if you want to follow me there. Nick Jordan on Facebook. Outrage Cast on all the iTunes apps and whatnot. And the Bitcoin address is below if you're feeling generous. Always appreciated. Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Archer says, and the leftists in 2005 laughed and said that would never happen when Republicans said, one day you will want equal rights for pedos too. Now that's what's going on today. Yeah, the legitimizing of pedophilia, it's like, they just attack the weak and the innocent, dude. And that's why we have to have strong men who speak the truth and don't compromise. That's why Joe Rogan is fundamentally a willow weeping in the wind. All right? He's not the rock of masculinity that he could be with his platform. And it's disappointing. But he does create a vacuum with which people like me can fill it with some actual truth and logic and rationality, and no compromise and no apologies, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, rocking it out with you all, and have some more fun, and hopefully we'll get some funnier topics tomorrow. Today was more of a soapbox rant, if you will. But some days it's gonna be like that, baby. Hope y'all have a beautiful Saturday. I'll be up at the North Hollywood Fourth Wall tonight, rocking it out, 9 and 10 o'clock if anybody's in LA. Yeah, everybody, I love y'all. I'll catch you tomorrow.